Hi boys and girls. So today we are going to continue learning about what is air and why do we need air. So go ahead and pause real quick and make sure you have a buddy and then come back. Okay, so our learning goal is I can identify what air is and how air is used. Also, I can identify connections between two ideas in a text, so how things are related. So we're going to look here first. Before we start, go ahead and pause, and I want you to see if you can review something we learned in our last task. I want you and your buddy to try and find the heading. Did you guys point to what is air? So this is the heading. And tell me real quick, what do you think we're going to learn about? Yep, we're going to learn about what air is. So we're going to go ahead and read, and I want you to be thinking about what you learned about air while I read this to you. When you blow up a balloon, what is it filled with? It is filled with air. You cannot see air, but air is all around you. You need air to breathe. Go ahead and take a second. And I want you to put your hand on your stomach. And I want you to breathe in and out. Do you feel your stomach go up and down? That's because you are breathing in air. So your lungs are taking in the air, and then you are bringing it in your body and out of your body. So you are using the air to help you breathe. Air is another natural resource. We are always breathing air into our bodies. It keeps us alive. Air is made up of gases. A gas is something with no shape. It will fill up any space it is in. If you look at this little girl filling up the balloon with air, I know that the balloon was flat before, but when she blew air into the balloon, it now has the shape of the balloon. When she lets the air out, it will no longer take that shape. It'll take on a new shape, or no shape at all. So what are some things you learned about air? Go ahead and pause and tell your partner. So one thing I learned was that you cannot see air, but air is all around. Even right now while you're sitting, there's air around you. You just can't see it. I also learned that you need air to breathe. And we also practiced breathing and felt that air coming in and out of our bodies. I learned that air is a natural resource. And I also learned that air is made up of gas. And a gas is something with no shape. Were those some of the things that you and your partner learned? Great job. So let's look next. The heading here is wonderful wind. So let's think about what we learned about wind while we read. Do you know why trees sway back and forth? If you look at this picture, this shows them swaying. Or why your kite flies? They are being blown by wind. Wind is moving air. Wind can be gentle. It can ruffle your hair, just like the hair in the pictures here. Wind can also be very strong. Tornadoes and hurricanes are storms with strong winds. They can destroy people's homes. So go ahead and pause, and I want you to tell your partner one or two things that you learned from this section about wind. Okay, did you guys come up with something? So one thing I learned is that wind is moving air. That's really interesting because I just learned about air, so now I'm learning that wind is also a type of air, but it's moving air. I also learned that wind can be gentle, kind of like a breeze or a light wind, like with the girls in the picture with their kite flying, or these trees that are blowing or swaying in the wind. But also that wind can be very strong. In order to do all this damage and blow a tree down, the wind had to be really quite strong. Alright, so I want you to talk to your partner for a minute. We just read about air and wind. How are air and wind connected? Go ahead and pause and talk about that. Did you guys say that air and wind are both air? and that they are natural resources that people use. So we just learned about all the ways we use air and wind, or how all the ways that air and wind might affect our lives. So they are both things that happen natural on Earth. But also, air and wind are connected because they both come from air. I learned that wind is moving air. So let's go ahead and compare how wind and air are similar. So can you pause and tell your partner 2 things you learned about air or wind that are the same? So I learned that wind and air are similar because people use air and wind. Wind comes from air, which is how they're connected as well. You cannot see air or wind, but it is all around. And air and wind do not have a shape. What about some differences? Can you and your partner talk about some of the things that are different about air and wind? Go ahead and pause and talk about that for a second. Wind and air are different because people breathe air, and wind is moving air. Wind can be gentle or strong. So air isn't gentle or strong, air is just there. Air is not moving air, only wind is moving air. And people don't need wind to breathe, but they do need air to breathe. So on the next slide, you guys are going to take a little quiz to see what you learned. Remember, our learning goal was that we were learning about what is air and how do people use it. All right, good luck.